skyrocketing housing costs are causing buyers to drop out of the market or consider relocating. This is making affordable areas a lot more attractive. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is your daily dose of real estate, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about migration trends, and they are really fascinating. So we're going to get in the details. It's all provided by Redfin. We'll link to the article here in the show notes. But before we jump into it, if I could ask a small favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and consider leaving a comment. The comments really help me as well as others learn and grow. And without further ado, let's just jump right into this article. According to this article, nearly 1/3 of all Redfin users look to move away from their hometown in the first quarter of 2022. In addition to that, the number of homebuyers leaving Seattle has increased sixfold since before the pandemic, largely due to remote working and soaring home prices. One factor in the early signs we're seeing of a housing market slowdown in Seattle and other pricey coastal markets. So Seattle, as well as some of the pricey coastal markets like California, they are starting to show signs of cooling down. We are starting to see an increase in price reductions, and we'll touch on that more here in a minute. Now, the most popular migration destination is actually Miami, which has risen just as quickly. So we'll get into some of the charts, some of the stats and facts here in just a second. But this article says that skyrocketing home prices, rising mortgage rates have made relocating to a more affordable area the only viable option for some prospective home buyers. So this particular chart here shows the different quarters dating back to 2019. And you can see that back in the first quarter of 2019, only about 25% of the Redfin users were looking to migrate. That number is up now to 32.3%, so nearly 1/3 of all users. That's a pretty dramatic increase. It's showing more and more people are moving out of those expensive metro areas, and they are seeking affordability. And what's really cool here, in just a second, we're going to talk about where they are going. So it'll show where they're leaving and then where they are actually going. It's like Wayne Gretzky said, you want to skate to where the puck is going. So if you know that the population is growing in certain areas and there's a massive demand for housing, well, it's likely to put upward pressure on real estate prices, even though interest rates have gone up. So there's still going to be a big buyer demand here. So let's get into that here right now. The typical home in Seattle sold for $750,000 in February. That's up 15% year over year, making it the 8th most expensive major metro in the United States, behind only coastal California. Those soaring home prices, combined with concentration of tech jobs, which can typically be done remotely, have encouraged many Seattleites to seek more affordable, sunnier pastures. Now, at the time, would-be homebuyers leaving Seattle is one reason why its housing market is showing early signs of cooling. With the slowdown in the number of buyers contacting Redfin agents in 2022 compared to last year and year-over-year decline in mortgage applications. So Seattle actually has a net outflow of about 24,000 residents in the first quarter. That's up from about 10,000 a year earlier and about 4,000 2 years earlier before the pandemic actually began. So if you're looking at this chart here, you can see the net outflow. Even a couple years ago, people were leaving the Seattle market, but it is really dramatically increased here over the last 2 years. You can see that this is kind of an all-time record outflow for them. So where are all of the residents from Seattle going? Well, the number one destination here is actually Phoenix, Arizona, and prices are up significantly in the Phoenix market as well. The median home price is $456,000, but that's still far lower than the median price in Seattle. So now we're to the data that I think is really interesting. This is the top 10 metros by net outflow of users, and it actually shows their top destination. So look at number one on the list. That's actually San Francisco, California. They had nearly 53,000 residents leave the San Francisco area, and take a look at the top destination. It's Sacramento, California. That's the market that I'm currently in. So we're getting a tremendous amount of folks coming up from the Bay Area. That has definitely put some upward pressure on prices out here. Now, as it mentioned earlier in the article, it talked about a lot of tech jobs and the ability to work remote. We are seeing that left and right over here. So you have Bay Area folks coming up. They are keeping their Bay Area job. They're keeping their Bay Area income and their salaries. And this market is much more affordable. Just generally speaking, you get twice the house for half the price. Number two on the list is Los Angeles, with 37,000 residents leaving, and the top destination is San Diego. New York saw about 33,000 residents leave, with the top destination being Miami, Florida. A lot of migration into the Florida market, that is for sure. They come up on this list a couple times. Washington, D.C. is fourth on the list. People are heading over to Salisbury, Maryland. We have number 5 on the list is Seattle with 24,000 residents leaving, and they are headed to Phoenix, Arizona. Now the list goes on here showing the top 10. I won't go through every single one, but this article will be linked here in the show notes if you want to see it yourself. But the last thing I want to touch on before we wrap up the video is here's the actual top 10 metros by net inflow. So Florida has been a market that has really been booming over the last couple years, and it's really been attractive for investors that were getting involved in that market. But this is not the only time that Florida shows up on the top 10 list here. You can see here that they show up in Tampa, Cape Coral, and Northport. So out of the top 10 metros, Florida is actually on the list 4 times. That has been really an attractive market for people to relocate to, as well as investors that were buying homes in that market. They've had a tremendous amount of pressure on rents as well. Phoenix makes the number 2 spot. You had 14,000 people relocate to Phoenix. Tampa, Florida, like we talked about, that's about 11,000 people moved into Tampa. And Sacramento made number 4 on the list with 9,500 people relocating. A lot of people talk about supply and demand. So we still have record low levels worth of inventory here in the Sacramento region. And this type of migration trend really puts pressure on that. I think that's why we've had less than a month's worth of supply for the last couple years. Up until recently, this last month in April, we saw the inventory kick up to about 1.4 months in the Sacramento area. But even that is still what we would consider a tight seller's market. We would need to get to maybe 3 to 6 months to be more balanced, neutral, maybe even moving into what we would consider a buyer's market. And then the last one I'll mention is number 5 on the list. That's Las Vegas. That had about 9,300 residents relocate to Nevada. I know this was a really popular destination for many people because they wanted to escape the income tax here in California. And you can see the top origin is actually Los Angeles. So a lot of migration from Los Angeles over to Las Vegas, Nevada. I think that's only about a 4-hour trip. So people were migrating out of Los Angeles. They cited reasons like high taxes, homelessness, and lots of other issues that they were seeing in the area, and they moved out to Las Vegas. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for today's video. What do you think of the migration trends? Do you think they're important? How do they affect the price of real estate? Let me know in the comments below. It seems like the migration trends are cooling a little bit, but certain areas are seeing a lot of outflow while others are seeing a lot of inflow. So you have these pricey coastal markets, you have areas like Seattle, you have areas like the San Francisco Bay Area. People are moving out of those areas and they are relocating and seeking affordability. But one small anecdote that I thought was interesting is that even though you see this migration out of the San Francisco area, that market is still very strong. I actually spoke with a good friend of mine who is a real estate agent down there, and they are still hitting record prices as long as those homes are priced properly, but the homes are selling very quickly. They are receiving multiple offers, in many cases going well over the list price. So even though people are leaving those areas, it still doesn't seem like it is softening too much at this point. So anyway, that's all I have for you here today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't done so yet, please hit that like button, that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.